What's up, guys? If you ever wanted to invest in truck parking, the first thing you need to know is how to underwrite the value. We're sitting down with Jose from Rig Hut, and we're going to be underwriting a random truck parking lot. So, full disclosure, before today, we didn't look at anything about this truck parking lot, but using Google Maps and everything online, we're going to show you step by step how to value an existing truck parking operation so you can submit an LOI. I'm going to show you a copy of that document, and Jose is going to handle the underwriting so you know what price to pay and how much money you're going to make when you sell. So, Jose, thanks for.
Hey guys, this is Jose with Rig Hut. Today we want to do something that we've been wanting to share for a long time. Maybe we continue to do so. It's essentially to show you guys how we would look at a truck parking yard, the type of income, the type and amount of income that we believe the yard will generate. And we have here Ron Rode, a truck parking expert and attorney who is going to help us out, just make sure that we're not missing any stuff that he's definitely seen more time than not. So let's get into it.
Perfect.
So I'll screen share. Again, as Ron said, in full disclosure, we did not look at a yard before this. This was what we did choose. We chose a market that we are somewhat familiar with at the very least. So before we got here, all we did was Google truck parking Miami, truck parking South Florida, and they gave us a few options, and we kind of just rolled the dice and chose this one here, which hovers, or it hugs the airport. This is Miami International Airport, just on the southwest corner. There is a truck parking site right here named Carballo Parking, right under the Dolphin Expressway at the Palmetto, probably the two most popular and prone to accident highways in maybe the country, but definitely Miami.
So, you could make this a tow yard, right? If you ever need a backup
You could-
tenant.
That's for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if there's already at the yard there. So what we can do is the very first thing I always look at, and Ron, jump in here, please, like at any time or drive this. But the first thing I always do when I look at yards, if I had, whether it's like an investor cap on or just someone who wanted to do some diligence on what a yard is doing today, I always have to look at the size, right? I use Land Glide for like just to get a better sense of the actual property line and to understand the acreage. And so this you could tell is two, I don't know, you could probably share more here, but there's two different what seems to be parcels of land that include the full yard. But being from the area, I know that this is all one yard. You see there's two entrances, one on Northwest 12th Street and one here on 11th. But in terms of acreage, you have here 2.25.
What was it?
2.8, 2.25.
2.25?
Yeah.
So people following along, I'm generating an actual letter of intent to purchase. And one of the elements that we put in our letters of intent is the approximate number of acres. So I'm going to be showing you that later, but I'm going to be filling it out as we progress on the due diligence.
Yeah. First thing that pops up here is the irregular shape. You could tell they actually divided the yard into what seems to be three small yard, one larger one, and then two smaller ones. They separate this rectangle piece, this 2.25 acre piece, into 2 yards here. This could be, more of a box truck and boat type facility, right? Or just welcome smaller spaces. Maybe they probably have smaller space to work with here. You can tell there's this what looks like a fence line with vegetation around it. You can see there's boats. You could see this is actually I want to say, is that a billboard?
I think it's a billboard, a dual-sided billboard.
Yeah, a billboard. And so because it's irregular shaped, what I would normally do here is you can either count the trucks on top or we can do both. Let's see. We'll do a line here. So in that small piece is about 0.75, 0.8 of an acre. Usually what we think of is 20 to 25 truck and trailer spaces a full acre. Because this is a bit smaller. I don't know how granular we want to get here, but if you just do what the math is on 0.8 times, so you have about 40 trucks here. You can tell they're kind of just fitting them in. You can tell the majority are actually cars. What can be the case here is these can actually be personal vehicles for the for the owners of the trucks on the bigger yard. But if you want
Do you see any access though? Would they be walking across internally?
I
Maybe
don't
up
see
by the
any
boat.
access, but there could very well be some exits here.
I mean, I don't think there's anything across that vegetation. The north south, I don't think there's any fence. Same for that section. The only area I'm looking at is by the boat, by the bow of the boat. Possibly that could
Here,
be open. Do you see
yeah,
that like gravel
yeah,
light color?
right here.
Yep. That's the only access point for pedestrians that I might see.
Got it. So, what would you think? Is this like an add-on? Is it
Well, I mean, you tell me because my thought was my first step is to estimate the existing income. I always want to buy existing truck yards based on existing income. My projections and any of my rental increases, that's all of my profit. So, my first step would have been to manually count because I don't care if the owner is being inefficient. That's a penalty for him. So I would just count the actuals, and I only split it between 75 and 40-foot spaces. So any
got it.
pedestrian cars that just goes into a 40-foot rental rate. And what I would say is I would just count all the spaces, put them in two categories, 75, and what my best rental assumption is for a yard of this shape and location, the condition of the surface and amenities. And then I would come to a monthly, max gross number. We're probably assuming pretty close to 100% occupancy, so there's not a lot of vacancy
Definitely.
loss. But that would have been my first step, and then backing into or the next step would be figuring out his expenses. We can pull up the property taxes. We can estimate insurance. He doesn't probably have full-time staff, but maybe he's got some management fees. So that was my approach or my thought.
All right, so let's just do a quick count, and we'll speed all this up. You're saying you normally just count the smaller spaces and then separate that from the larger spaces?
Yeah, so I will count every single vehicle on site. And then that's two categories, 75 versus a 40-foot.
This piece has 76.
So this is a larger parcel, has 76. I'm working on the LOI. I won't share my LOI until we're ready.
Okay, I'll do it here. Total trucks. I'll just do total. Yeah. What I said, 72,
76
31 in lot two.
for 7
Yeah.
because one of them's obviously a 40. These the boat and okay.
So it's actually 19. 19 truck and trailers in lot one, 76 total pieces of equipment, 22 in lot two.
And to clarify, when you say lot 2, you're just doing the upper?
The upper quadrant of the right parcel,
Yeah.
lot three would be under that. This is where like the nuances come in because so I'm also counting the small cars that look like they're in the longer spaces because those are probably just,
Yeah,
they're supposed to
agreed.
be in there, right?
Yeah,
Those are drivers
dedicated
that,
route. Those are
yeah, those are
local guys.
local guys. So, and then we can make the assumption that everyone in lot three, so the bottom quadrant, is also they all fall under the 40s and they all pay. Like, forget the
That's
parking, right?
again, this is science more than art. Like you see how sketchy it is. This is the reality. So the goal is not to get the exact number, it's just to get an approximation which is based in facts, not just guessing.
About 42, 3.
So now using Jose's market experience, he's honed this through cold calls. He's looked at other public offerings. There will be other truck yards in Miami that post what their monthly and daily rates are. So we're going to skip that step because Jose is local and knows the market. So Jose, what would you expect a yard of this condition to currently be charging based on the amenities? How much would they charge for a 75-foot space on a monthly basis?
The amenities at this yard is location. That's what they're basing this all off of. There are no amenities whatsoever except for the standard, which should be in every yard, and that's just there's a secure gate for sure. There's a fence surrounding the property, and there should be lighting.
But they don't, it looks like they don't even have a dumpster. They don't even have a common dumpster.
I mean, sometimes what people have said is if you have a dumpster, you kind of welcome people to throw trash off
Yeah,
out of the dumpster. Yeah.
I'll co-sign on that.
And so that's something to take into consideration. But then again, I mean, there's other yards that do just as well, if not better, with the full amenities, right? So there's a wide spectrum of what a yard can look like. But this, when I look at this, it's tougher to say from my side because I just know how well located this property is. But again, it's a major airport. So any major airport in any major market, if you're this close to it and you see all the busy highways hugging everything, and this is located just under right off of it, you can imagine that this is going for top pricing just because drivers and logistics companies will pay to be that close, that infill in a market.
So give us a number. Is it
Truck and
350,
trailer, no, I think a
550?
truck and trailer here per month will pay upwards 550.
550. Perfect. All right, let's use a conservative number. Like let's not push that. 500, 550. What do you want to pick?
We'll do 525 right in the middle.
All right. How about for the 40-foot spaces? Are you
We
getting
do
300, 250?
no, I would think higher. I would think 400.
Okay. Okay. So let's plug in $400 for the 40-foot spaces, 525 for the 75-foot. I'm Asian, but I'm not that good at math. What does that monthly gross potential rent look like?
Let's see. Just shy of 65K.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, or let's finish revenue. Are there any other revenue streams that we should be able to account for on this property?
It doesn't look like there's enough space to welcome additional revenue streams. Some yards, what they can do, like yours actually, if you have enough space in the yard, you can welcome tire, they can where a section where they can drop tires off or they can throw away tires. Sometimes you can charge for it, sometimes not, but it is a recurring theme at yards in general. You're going to get
Yeah.
tires, put up. It looks
Well, that's
like
a great point. There is some dead corners, but corners are one of the areas that I look for. If there is like a dumpster rental company, maybe Porta Johns, there's some businesses that need outdoor storage, but in a very odd shape. It works for them, but you can't fit a 75-foot truck. So it doesn't look like we have any of those revenue streams. So it's pretty clean in terms of the revenue is just going to be from truck and trailer parking. For right now, I'm not going to include the billboard income that we talked about earlier. I don't think that we should compute that. That should be kind of a standalone value if that billboard does convey. So let's not even worry about other revenue. I am gonna hop over. So if that's it for the expenses, we could pop in like a 10%, 5% vacancy discount, but we're pretty close. We're pretty close to that true number. 59, 60,000 a month is what we think his revenue is, or what it should be. And then expenses, we know what your major expenses of operating a yard, property taxes, insurance, management fee, and then maybe some utilities. That's pretty much it. Landscaping. Landscaping can be a big one as well. Doesn't look like this guy's spending too much, but he is spending money. So the good thing is that we can verify a lot of these numbers. Let's see.
there are a few other things that we can add here too. In terms of like the value add opportunity, I don't know if we want to talk about that now or maybe at the end. We just went so yard operators kind of fall under two categories. They're the ones who you can tell have been at the yard for a very long time and they know every nook and cranny that they can fit any type of piece of equipment. And they know, what corners are unused, what spaces the guys are not going to be in the area for. They know what spaces that guy, has left his truck there for months on end. And so it's kind of just dead. And so the yard owners that really know their yard and they know the places of opportunity, they probably are hiding, or I don't know if hiding is the right word, but they're generating sometimes 100% plus occupancy, knowing how they could play with the spaces than just what we're counting up here.
Yeah.
The other thing is you can count, you can use platforms like this where you can actually measure, how much spaces are actually along the different, sides or the entrances, knowing that a truck and trailer is about 70 feet, knowing that each one is, each piece of equipment, as you can imagine, is about 12 feet wide. So you can tell how efficient they are in their layout, but you could see from satellite view, a yard like this guy's using every single corner, I think, available.
Yep, for sure. And there's a lot of underlying things that we don't want to assume that we can generate extra income, but that's all in terms of the upside. Let me take over screen sharing for 1 second. I'm going to show you how to look up the property taxes. So what I've done here is gone to the Miami-Dade County property appraiser. I popped in the address. Again, this is all Google. This is public information. You pull up the county appraiser, so it does confirm that we found this parcel. You can see the owner here is Lejeune Airport Park Suites. That kind of speaks to what Jose was talking about, the hotel guy. So he had a little bit of backstory on this. I am going to use this to pull for my LOI. So I'm going to keep working on the LOI, guys. You're going to see that later. But for right now, what I want to do is get over to this link. If you can see my cursor here, it's on the property taxes. And if you click on this, you're going to go over to another website, countytaxes.net, and we can see that in November of 2024, this guy paid 50,848 in property taxes on this one parcel. Very key. Don't forget about the other parcel because there's two. But Jose, if you're following along at home, can you put in 50,848 and 7 cents on the expense Excel sheet? And then, wow, Miami-Dade is pretty slick. So from the map, I was able to click over to the other property, an 848.
Okay.
So you're able to click over to countytaxes.net. It shows you the real estate account, again, confirming the owner, and you can see the property taxes really clearly paid 50,847 cents. Pretty stable around that 51,000. 45, 7 years ago. So it's been pretty stable. But the key is don't forget, you have to add the other parcel. So I'm going to go back over to the Miami-Dade property appraiser. And what was pretty slick, I don't know if you guys caught that, but from the map view, I was able to click over on the other parcel. So super slick, confirms the other property address here, 7370. Again, same owners, that corp, different mailing address, interestingly enough. So we'll probably take note of that one. Well, wait, is this the yard address? Pretty close. I think it is the other one. But anyway, same property taxes. It's going to load countytaxes.net, paid in full 39,818. Jose, following at home, can you pop that in and add that to the property tax line item? Okay, so we're back to the beginning. Once we've determined these are actual property taxes. So if you remember, we're creating an estimated model for his actual income and expenses right now. We're not worried about the future. We're not trying to project increases, but this is actual numbers first. And you've got to complete this model, revenue, expenses, and net income first before you go into the projection. So how about insurance, Jose? Help us out on estimates for insurance or premiums. What do you think a yard, which is just dirt, kind of costs to insure? Okay, I'll pick up the insurance then. As a yard owner, I'm kind of estimating again, just on the low side for my stuff that is appraised and is dirt value. It's about $700 for every $3 million of assessed value. Call it 1,000 for every million. So when he's assessed at 2.4, I'm going to go ahead and apply a 2.5x rate. And the reason I'm able to do this is that liability insurance typically is much more stable across all asset classes, even across locations, because it's not based on the building, it's not based on labor costs, and it has nothing to do with hurricanes, it has nothing to do with wind and water damage. It's liability insurance. So that's how I feel confident to apply a 2.5x. So, 500 a month for insurance. Jose, if you want to plug that in, I'm not sure. You were doing a monthly. So
I have annual to it.
okay, perfect, perfect. So plug that in. I think 2,500 a month for insurance is reasonable based on actual expenses that I'm paying. What's next? Do we think landscaping, $1,000 a month?
You do
I
that.
pay
There's also
500, but I'm in a city too.
what about landscaping? So that works. $1,000 we'll put in, and then the surface is
Management
very similar. Surface is very similar to your yard in Beach Street. So what do you think annually maintaining that?
for repairs,
Yeah, because this is like the exact same surface pretty much.
I would say 10 grand. It's kind of minimal in the scheme of things.
And then management, you can imagine for a yard like this, they do have a manager on site. From what we've seen, honestly, after 40 different trucks, it starts to become a little bit of a headache. But once you get really closer to 3+ acres, then having someone understand what's going on in the yard at all times is probably needed. So maintenance would put 10 grand. And then management. The management is a little bit also nuanced because you have groups like yourself who, if you have an office, you kind of can leverage someone in-house to also take that on. If you have sometimes you can also offer a space for free in a trailer and have someone live there. Some people do that, and you can calculate what that costs, the opportunity cost, and I guess not renting that spot out. I would probably assume, what, $30K a year to have someone there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could peg that number. What would Rig Hut charge for management?
For I mean, look, for a yard like this, it would depend the tiers. I mean, you know a lot about what we do. So I would say if you do not want to have anyone understanding what's going on and you just want to sort of offload any type of management aspect, you don't receive any calls, minimal headaches, all you do is collect the income, then you're looking at about just under 25K a year.
Okay.
So two grand or so a month.
Okay. So that'd be 24.
Yeah, we have a spectrum of pricing from, I mean, anywhere from $400 a month to all the way up
Yeah.
to what I just described.
My gut is that he's spending less. So in terms of the actual model, maybe we go with a little lower number, like 20 grand
Yeah.
a year, just because I don't think he's spending 2K a month in opportunity costs or actual costs to do that. So for that current model, let's just plug in a number like 20,000.
Yeah.
So how does that model shape out? Do you want to are you think you're at a point, can you share the model so we can look at revenue, expenses, and what a net income is on this deal?
Yeah. Can you see it?
Yeah, that's great. So
So we're looking at total annual income at 776,000.
you want to do a subtotal for expenses? Yeah.
Total expenses 162K. This should be a line. You see that? About $614,000.
All right. So this kind of is super useful. What I would do is, on a directly managed yard like this, a 10 cap is a good deal. I think it's something that I would buy. Get no comments on whether the seller will actually accept. But that's a 6.1 million offer that is pretty good based on actuals. I have a fair degree of confidence that we could replicate this level of net income in 1 year post closing. And so at a 10 cap, you can get bank financing. Bank financing is maybe 7%. You can have room to increase some of these expenses and still generate the same net operating income. We have no clue if they're taking credit cards, if they have auto pay, if they're paying sales tax, all this stuff. We have no idea. But this is a starting point that I would say go ahead and issue an offer based on estimated actuals, because this at least gives you a basis. And I think it shows the seller that you've done. Look at us. I mean, we've spent 45 minutes or half an hour crafting these documents. And that's what's important. What's important is to start generating a conversation with the seller that they appreciate. Do you have anything to add on this current snapshot?
Current snapshot, no.
Okay. Uh, I'm going to share then my screen so I can show people our LOI. Or let me make sure this number 61403, because I've been working behind the scenes to create an LOI. And guys, this is a free Word document template. I'll drop a link below, and you can have this exact LOI to share to send to people. All right. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So this is super simple LOI. It's 2 pages or 3 pages, but 2 pages of terms. Dear, I do like to try to look up this guy's name. So if Jose knows him, he's going to see if I'm correct. What I'm doing is I'm going to go to Florida Sunbiz, which is their Secretary of State Management. I'm going to look up the entity, search by name. This is that corp. Here it is, number one, active. So here's pretty easy. So Natalie Garcia, he's the registered agent. That doesn't really help us. But if he's also listed as the president, it looks like a family member is the VP and secretary. I have a pretty good feeling that this is the guy we want to address it to. So I'm going to go ahead and copy. So like this, sometimes we do this just to make sure. But here we go. So your letterhead, choose your own real estate company letterhead, populate the date. This is the entity. This is one of their addresses, but I remember on Secretary of State, they have a different address, but I think this one is back to the yard. Yeah. So this address on Okeechobee is probably a better address for them. Let's see. Yep. Well, that's a motel. Next motel. Anyway, I think they may office out of there because Jose was saying they own hotels. So that kind of makes sense, but that's the best address we have. A real property, going too fast. All right, so there's that. Real property consisting of approximately 5.11 acres of land located at the, help me out, Jose, 7865 Northwest 10th Street,
Yeah. Yeah.
Miami, Florida, whatever. Okay. Buyer, you can put any of your entities. I recommend you use something that exists so that they look it up. Owner fee simple. Here, we got the purchase price. We got that populated. And again, this is just an offer to get the conversation going. And I think it makes sense to some degree. Candidly, I kind of think 5 or 6 million is kind of close to just the land basis as is, without knowing anything about the zoning, setbacks, any of that. So the 6 million is kind of okay. Earnest money, I think you got to be serious with these. It's got to be six figures. I don't think it needs to be more, but that's what it is. Non-refundable deposit is interesting. Is sometimes if you can have a conversation, you can say, "Look, I'll give you some money for your time." It's very interesting to just to get people to talk to you. You don't actually have to pay it, but if you put it in your LOI, it can encourage these people to even engage with you because they feel like they will be compensated for going under contract. So these people, they're probably rich. I'm gonna throw that in there and say, five 5,000 bucks if you go under contract with me, just because. 90-day look, I think that's a little bit high,
Yeah.
but 60 is fine, not too bad. Okay, due diligence 60, purchase and sale, one extension. Yeah, I like these. I like to spell these out in LOIs too, and it protects you. They will provide access, blah blah. This is all standard. Nothing really here. Due diligence, leases, insurance, phase one, these are all critical. These are going to make or break your property based on these if they have them. Closing is 30 days afterwards. Split the escrow fees. PSA within 10 days. This is all normal and you don't really need to touch this. This one is interesting. Buyer intends to put down whatever number you put down here, be prepared to potentially show a proof of funds. So I might say like 50%. And then, in the alternative, we could say, 7% interest rate. I would delete this. They can let them do that. So something like this. This plants a tiny seed with the seller that we're interested in this, but these are pretty good seller financing terms. So I do think most people are going to be interested. And if you stay tuned for part two of our model where we look at an actual calculation, we're going to use a 7% because that's bank debt and that could be seller financing debt. There are some key differences, but this is very standard. LOI does not constitute. This is all normal. Again, what my advice is that you go ahead and sign this ahead of time. But you don't want to leave this blank. You don't want extra steps for that. So I would paste your signature. I don't know if I have one right now, but basically I have. You can do this.
This is an attorney giving free advice here. I have some advice as well. You have to know, there should be a huge caution sign on this to know the comps as well. Because I
Yeah.
don't know if the owner would necessarily welcome just off the income.
Just off what?
Just off the income and what he's making at the yard, and you're looking at a market like this. And again, Ron, this is sort of your expertise here, but the comps would most likely trump what this property is generating.
Well, that's totally fine. I mean, I think the value of this exercise
Of
is
course, yeah,
not to
yeah.
necessarily be in a market like Miami or heavy infill. If this same yard is located in Boca, if it's up in Fort Myers, they will sell for income approach because they don't have that same type of dynamic land values and you are paying for the income. And, in part two, we'll go through the model where we increase income and we sell on an income basis to somebody else. I think this is just a starting point to give you a number because candidly, I think a lot of people have no clue whether they should offer 4 million or 10 million. And if it's 10 million, I mean, you just don't have any basis for except for land value comps. So, this is one exercise. Please don't take it with a grain of salt, but apply it in your own market and submit and see what happens. The worst you can happen is no response or they reject you, but you've got to keep cranking out LOIs and you need some basis because look, I'd be willing to buy it for 6 million. Obviously, he won't sell, but if I keep sending out LOIs at a 10 cap based on my estimate for income and expenses, I will eventually get a deal and get a deal that I'm willing to buy.
Great.
All right. So, got to subscribe to the channel for part two, where we look at the projection model. That's going to show you how much money you make if you do end up buying this truck parking lot at a 10 cap.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, Jose. I gotta run, but it was great working through this with you. And again, everything is in the details, but this at least gives you a basis to look inside our minds and how our thought process works.
Yep. This is a lot of fun. Next time we'll do your market.
All right.
Thanks.